You know that feeling, right? That little nudge you get just before you actually decide to do something. That tiny unspoken intention? Well, it turns out there's a name for that. Pre-will. And what if I told you its hidden power is way bigger than we ever thought?
Sounds a little like science fiction, doesn't it? But here's the thing. Scientists are genuinely digging into this. And the question they're asking is pretty fundamental. Can our intention alone, even before it becomes an action, actually shape the reality around us? So this is the key concept we're talking about, pre-will. For a second, just forget about the final decision you make. Pre-will is that feeling before the feeling. Think of it like a faint flicker, a desire that pops into your head long before you consciously say, okay, I'm doing this. First up, intention before action. Let's dive right in and see how a scientific study actually tried to measure the power of this feeling we all know so well. Now, it's super important to separate this from what we call free will. See, free will is when you act. It's the, I'm going to pick up this cup moment. That's a conscious choice. But pre-will, it's much more subtle. It's more like a gentle field of influence, a soft pull in a certain direction, before that decision is ever made. Okay, moving on to the mystery of quantum collapse. And this is where things get, well, really weird, because this idea of pre-will might just hold the key to one of the biggest puzzles in all of physics. So here's the basic idea in the quantum world. A particle can exist in all of its possible states at the same time. It's kind of like it's swimming in an ocean of pure potential. It's only when we observe it that it seems to pick one spot and become real. That pop into reality is what's known as quantum collapse. And this leads to a really radical question. What exactly is observation? Does it have to be a physical act, like looking at something with our eyes? Or, and this is the big one, what if our intention alone, that subtle power of pre-will, is enough to stir that ocean of potential and pull something into reality? Which brings us to the 10,000 particle simulation. To test this pretty wild idea, researchers actually built a virtual universe to see what would happen. So picture this, 10,000 virtual particles. Every single one is just floating in its own sea of possibilities. That's 10,000 potentials just hovering inside a digital box, waiting for something or someone to influence them. And here's the genius part. To mimic pre-will, they didn't put a real observer into the system. Instead, they just introduced a field of intention, a weak, non-final energy influence. Think of it like a whisper of desire inside the simulation. The results were, honestly, pretty stunning. With no observer, no conscious decision being made, 4% of those particles suddenly collapsed into real particles. Something happened just because that subtle field of intention was present. And this collapse wasn't random at all. Out of 10,000 particles, 400 of them snapped into reality. But here's the kicker, they weren't just scattered everywhere. These chosen particles reportedly formed a really distinct spiral pattern right at the center of that intention field. So let's talk about the power of the pre-will field. What does this 4% actually mean? What kind of force are we even looking at here? The researchers described it beautifully. They said, pre-will isn't a command. It's more like a resonance of desire. It's like this vibration of want that, even though it's not strong enough to make a final decision, is just enough to disturb the equilibrium and pull a few possibilities into being.
So why only 4%? Why didn't everything collapse? Well, the answer seems to be about intensity. The intention just wasn't focused enough yet. It hadn't crossed the collapse threshold. The researchers even use this amazing term, gravity of intention, which suggests that an intention needs to have enough weight to actually pull reality into shape. Okay, this all happened in a simulation, right? So what's the impact on our reality? What does it actually mean for us out here in the real world?
This matters for three huge reasons. First, it suggests that reality can be influenced by our quietest, most silent intentions. Second, it means that the act of creation doesn't always need a physical action. It can start with just an intention. And maybe the most profound takeaway is that it reveals this magical space between pure potential and actual solid reality.
And this brings us to one last pretty mind-blowing thought. If the silent intention of just one person can shape a pattern in a virtual universe, what's the effect of our collective intention? I mean, if millions of us focused our intention on the same goal, what could we create then?